Hi, I'm Chris Moorby. I've been in the meat industry over 40 years and I'm now a tutor at the School of Artisan Food. I'm sure you're all able to cook pork at home. What I'm going to show you are tips and techniques that will allow you to take your cooking skills to the next level. I'm going to be showing you today how to make a hand-raised hot water crust pork pie. First of all, we're going to make the pastry. This is a pastry using a high protein strong plain flour, lard, a pinch of salt and boiling water. So firstly we place the cold water in the pan onto the hob and we place into it the lard. We simply want the lard to melt, and as soon as it starts to simmer then we can take it off the hob and add it to the flour. We don't want it boiling and bubbling fiercely, otherwise it could spill over. So the fat is completely melted into the water, and now we add a pinch of salt to the flour, make a well in that flour, and then we add the melted fat and water to this. Just being a little bit careful that it doesn't splash as you're pouring it slowly into the flour. And now we fold the flour into the oil until the flour is completely coated. Obviously the mixture is very warm at this time, so use a wooden spoon until the temperature drops a little bit and we're sure that we've got a good coating of oil on the flour. Okay, so we can get rid of the wooden spoon now, and what we want to do is we're just bringing it together, a little light kneading. So we bring it all together, all the flours mixed in now, and that's the consistency that we're looking for. Just bring it all together a little bit more, and at this stage that's as much as we need to do. Don't want to overwork it, otherwise the pastry may well shrink back when we come to work with it later. Now that needs to cool. Put it into a refrigerator. It needs to be placed into a bag so that the outside doesn't dry. If the outside dries, that outside becomes very crumbly and you get crumbly pieces in your finished pie. So that now goes into the fridge until it's cooled down. So the pastry's been in the fridge for at least a couple of hours. You can leave it overnight as well. What needs to happen now though is that before you start using it, you leave it to come back to room temperature so that the pastry can be worked. So we remove the pastry from the bag, we take off a portion for our base, and we take off a smaller portion for the lid. We need some flour on our work surface, we need some flour on our pastry, and now we're working it between our fingers and palm of our hand, and we're moving it round in a circular motion. Yeah, so we're pointing our fingers inwards, and the shape you want to be looking to achieve is that of like a field mushroom almost. Once you've got that, then we're ready then to start hand raising the pie. For this I'm using a pie dolly. You can get these in lots of different sizes depending on the size of pie that you're wanting to make. They're readily available on the internet. If you don't want to go to the expense of buying one of these, just use a jam jar or even a wine bottle. So we place the pie dolly and putting even pressure onto it, we push the pastry down to make the base of the case the correct thickness. Keep checking that. We're checking it against the light, and eventually what we want to do when we know we've got the right thickness, we want to be able to see the silhouette of your fingers behind that pastry, and that's fine. A little bit more flour onto the pie dolly. Then we put our thumbs on the shoulder of the dolly and our hands surrounding the pastry. And now it's a circular motion, but we're putting pressure on the pastry to bring it up the side of the dolly. Even pressure, keeping our thumbs on the shoulder, and what we want to be achieving is we want that pastry to reach the top of the shoulder of the pie dolly. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now what we do then to help the pastry come off the dolly is we simply roll it. Also flattens the side of the pastry, back on its side and out they come. And that's the base, already made, ready to put in our filling. We're now going to make the pie meat filling. We're using British free-range pork. This has been bought from a local butcher. The two cuts that I use are shoulder, which is the lean part, and belly pork, or sometimes you could use back fat as well. We need a small amount of fat in it, otherwise the pie would be very dry. If you've got a mincer at home, of course you can mince it through. You could also finely dice the meat with a knife, but why not ask your butcher to actually mince it for you. So this is the lean that we've minced through on a coarse plate, and to that I'm going to add the fine salt. I'm using sea salt because I find that it's not just as harsh as rock salt. And so now we mix the lean and the salt. The mix wants to become sticky, and then what happens is that stickiness will hold in the other ingredients so that when we cook it, the pie remains lovely and succulent. Once that's in, we then add freshly ground white pepper, thoroughly mix in the pepper, and then finally, because we don't want to add the fat too early, because we don't want it to melt, and now we just mix that up until we get an even amalgamated mixture. And that's our pie filling already mixed. I'll now put it into the fridge for about half an hour to chill it down, and then we will put it into the pie and finish our pie off. So we've had the pastry case sitting in the refrigerator for a couple of hours. This is so that the pastry will firm up a bit and it's a bit more manageable. We've taken a portion of our meat mix and we lightly press it into a ball. Carefully place it inside the pie, and just a little light pressing wants to be about 1 centimetre from the top of the case. So the small piece of pastry that we put on one side for our lid, we're now going to roll that into a circular shape, and it wants to be rolled out to a diameter that's just slightly bigger than the diameter of the pie itself. Okay, what we also need to do at this stage is we need to make a hole in the centre of the lid. That's to ensure that the steam comes out of the pie when it's cooking and doesn't make the pastry go soggy. We take our egg wash and brush, and we just brush around the edge of the lid. We turn the lid over and place it carefully onto the top of the pie. We then gently push the edges of the lid onto the top of the pie, and we're now gently but firmly squeezing the two together so that when that pie bakes, we don't get any steam coming out of it and burst the pie lid. And that's the pie. We take a baking tray with parchment paper on and place the pie on top, and then we glaze the pie with the remainder of the egg wash. So as well as glazing the top, we would glaze all the way around the sides of the pie. This makes the pie go a lovely brown colour. So the pie is now ready to go into the oven. I'm going to now preset the oven to 190 degrees centigrade. Put the pie in the oven. And that will now bake for 20 minutes at 190. Then drop the oven down to 160. It wants to bake for a further 50 or 60 minutes. The key thing though is that the inside of the meat is at least 85 degrees centigrade. So the pie's been in the oven for about 80 minutes. So we're now going to place the finished pie on a cooling wire to cool down for 20 minutes, half an hour. So this is what the finished pie should look like. The outside of the pastry, lovely and golden brown, nice and shiny with the glaze. The pastry itself is wonderfully crisp, and that's complemented by the lovely succulent pork that's inside there. Just the right amount of salt and pepper. That's a simpler hand-raised pork pie as you can make, and it tastes absolutely wonderful.